You can get away with 68 millimeters by using the depth stop and 60 degrees on the left-hand side. I need to remove the top fence. It's got a little clamp there that you undo and it just slips straight off. Here, how are you? I have here the Kapex 60. I've been very fortunate, and Festool Australia have lent this tool to me for a week or two just to play around with it and get a feel for it and run through its features for you. And also I've had a bit of, as I say, a bit of a play, so I know the capabilities of the saw and it's pretty good. So here we go. Let's get started. To start off with, the blade. The blade is an 8.5 inch, which is 216 millimeters diameter blade. It has a 30 millimeter bore to go onto the arbor. It has a 2.3 millimeter kerf. That's the full width of the cut. The capacity of the saw to cut is 60 millimeters deep by 305, or so Festool says, but I've done a few cuts and I found that it will actually do 311 millimeters in full width, which is 12.25 inches, close enough. Just here we have what's called the depth stop, so I can push that forwards and I can wind it, so I can adjust the height and it will come up to full height of the capacity of the cut. Now that's important for some people if they want to do very fine cuts across the piece of a timber rather than having to stop halfway through the thickness of the timber. It's good. Now I use the depth stop as well if I want to achieve a deeper cut than 60 millimeters. You can get away with 68 millimeters by using the depth stop to stop the blade going all the way down into the table. I can adjust it. You can see it dropping down there. You can stop it when it gets to the point where the teeth are just inside the table. The trade-off of that, of course, is at 90 degrees, or at any degree really, the trade-off is that the cut won't complete at the back unless you put a sacrificial fence of some sort to space the timber forwards. If you bring the timber forwards, the cut isn't going to be as wide anymore. So you're going to come down to approximately 270 millimeters. 270 is about 10.5 inches, and 68 is going to be approximately 2 5/8 of an inch. On the table itself, I can swing it around to 61 degrees on the right hand side and 60 degrees on the left hand side. Now regarding what capacity the saw has to tilt over to the left and tilt over to the right to give you a compound miter, at the back, first things first, there's a release here. This is got a three-pronged star knob basically, and also I've released that. And just here, I don't know if you can see it from there, I'll take a photo, is a green functional pin that you push in, and then I can roll the saw over. Now, doing compound cuts, the best thing with this saw, because it's got such a big travel, 60 degrees and 47 degrees, it will do. It goes to 45 and there's a stop, and then I can push that green button back in again and it will release it and go down to 47 degrees. To do that, I need to remove the top fence. It's got a little clamp there that you undo and it just slips straight off. Now the saw can go over to 45 and then also 2 more degrees down to 47. So I have full travel. And even around at 61 degrees, I have full travel. All right, raise it back up again by releasing the clamp up to the top and then backwards, and it will stop at 90 degrees at that positive stop, and then I clamp it. It's not going to stay there on its own. I have to clamp it. All right, so that's pretty amazing. These fences are great. I love this idea. It drops back in, and wherever I want to slide it to or whatever, and tighten that little clamp up, and it's locked. Both fences do the same thing. While I'm down there on the fences, it's an idea to have a look at this. There's a couple of holes in each fence. I can screw sacrificial timber fences to the front of those to give me a 0 clearance at the back. When I have the saw at 90 degrees like it is now, and from the back to the front of this tightening knob, and if it was tipped over and also in a full rotation of its compound miter, because it takes up a bit more space as it does that, you're looking at 760 millimeters front to back. It was also, that 760 is 2.5 feet. So that's not bad. That can set up in a hallway or on top of a kitchen bench, not a problem at all. And you can keep on doing a fix out without a worry. Okay, the motor is a 1200 watt MMC motor, 240 volt, this particular one. It's got a variable speed control, which is over on the other side, and it's a belt drive back to the blade, not a bevel gear drive like the 120. So at the slower speed, it's 1300 RPM. At its fastest speed, it's 3500 RPM. Now, the 120 is turning at 3400 RPM. The reason that this one turns faster is the blade is slightly less in diameter by 1.5 inches, 3/4 in the radius. So it has to turn a little bit faster to deliver the same final speed cut approximately where the teeth are actually cutting through the timber. Now also, here's an interesting thing. I'll show you a picture on the side here. The speeds are color coded also for the blades. Now you'll notice if you buy a Festool blade, it will have a green ring and it will also have another colored ring. Well, it'll be red or yellow or blue. And that's relating to what materials the blade is designed to cut. And you'll see down the side here, it'll tell you as well, it gives you an indicator for what kind, where you should set the speed to, and it tells you roughly how fast that's going. Roughly, that's not like Festool, it'd be accurate. So if I want to change the blade to go from one material to another that I'm cutting, in the back here is an Allen key, and it pulls out of there and lives in that little cradle, which is handy. You don't have to go looking for a spanner. And I'll turn the saw around the other way. Whoop, before I do, around here is an arbor lock. So that guy there, when you push it in, now remember, don't have the saw connected to the power when you're doing. Disconnect this. You push down on the top section here, which will allow the saw to drop. I also like to tip the saw over at an angle to do this. Like so. And I have got the, it's a little bit hard for me to show you all of this happening at once. I'm going to lock the blade by pushing in. It's just like changing a blade on an angle grinder. There you go, I've locked it. And now I can use the Allen key to put in there and release the blade, take it out, put a new blade in, tighten her up, release that little arbor lock, and the blade will turn again. Then pop this back in. It's a great little holder. It's even got thumb holes. Locked in. Beautiful. Now, one funny thing I saw on the saw, one funny thing I saw is it looks like it's got a Wi-Fi signal on it. Now, I don't know what that is yet. I haven't researched it, but there is what looks like a Wi-Fi signal. Anytime I use my phone, it's got this little Wi-Fi, out it goes, how strong the connection is. There is a similar symbol there. The saw rotating table, I've told you, goes to 61 degrees on the right hand side, 60 degrees on the left. It also has these extension wings. Now down the bottom here, there are a couple of clamps. So I can extend it out to give the saw, to give the timber a little bit more support if I'm cutting smaller stuff. Obviously, if I'm cutting larger stuff, I'd want to set it up on the stand, or I'd want to do what I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. Out at the front here, you may see that there's a little leg coming down under there. I'll turn it around this way, it'll be easier to see it. Just here is there's a little leg coming out. Now that is an anti-tip feature. Now why have they got that there? The whole thing about this saw is to make it small and lightweight and compact, to be easy to transport, not so heavy, because all of the old guys are starting to grumble about heavy saws. So this is to help them out. So that's an anti-tip feature. See that? I cannot tip the saw over because the table is smaller than the 120, and I still want to be able to cut large pieces of timber with this. This stops the whole thing rocking if I've got more weight out the front than is it back at the table. Now also, if I've got pieces of timber in there that are big, I can put that in there, and if I want to hold that steady, I can slide the clamp in the back and lock it down. Great. It's not going anywhere. There's also, for narrower pieces, there's a clamp recess at the front as well. So you can clamp from the front or from the back, left and right hand side. Down the bottom here, the insert is not a zero clearance insert. You can't adjust it left or right. Now, my understanding of that is that because the blade is not actually cutting down through the timber, it's cutting up through the timber, it doesn't require any extra support to hold the fibers as the blade's going through. The timber behind the cut itself is going to be doing that. So the only reason that I wanted a zero insert there is if I'm shaving just a tiny little bit of timber off the end and I didn't want it getting caught in underneath there. But I guess because of going to 47 degrees left and right, they need that extra width for the blade to be able to travel down into that hole. Dust extraction on this saw is pretty good. It's not as good as my 120, but still it's no slouch. It does do the job very, very well. You can get this saw in two ways. You can buy it as the standard model like this is, or you can get their deluxe version. Now all of these things are retrofittable. One of the things that I've already got on the saw, which is part of the deluxe version, is the LED light. Now this guy up here is a plug and play. It's just two machine screws that hold the LED light with the lens and everything on it, and you push it straight in and tighten the screws up and it's fitted. The standard or base model doesn't have this in it, but it will go straight in. It's plug and play. There's a receiver in there. I'll show you a photo of the power receiver, and two machine screws, tighten it up, pull it in, and then you have this switch up the top which casts a shadow of the blade right where you're cutting. Can't get much more accurate than that. There is no setting of lasers or anything. It is a direct shadow of where the blade is coming down. Be aware when you're using it that the kerf on the blade is the teeth left and right. So before you actually turn the saw on, make sure that you line up the line on your timber with one of those shadows of the shadow of a tooth, because it will have tooth, narrow, tooth, narrow. So it's alternating the teeth and then a narrow section of the blade in between. Don't get caught with that. The deluxe model also comes with an angle divider, and it's very similar to the one for the 120, except for there's a bit more plastic in it, but no one's complaining about the plastic on the motor housing. It's very strong plastic. It's not going to go anywhere. I'll go through that in a minute. And it comes with 4 extension feet. Now these feet have the capacity of lifting the machine up so that the top of the table is 112 millimeters above your work surface. Why is it 112? Well, that is exactly the height of a Cis 1. So I can have Cis 1s out either side to support the timber that I'm cutting or whatever material I'm cutting, so that there's no flex or sudden release when I've gone through the cut. Now that's very, very handy if I'm working on a laminate floor or if I'm working on skirting boards. In the States you'd know them as baseboards. In Australia we call them skirting boards. So I could throw on a pair of knee pads and get around on my knees and don't have to do any walking. I just stay down there with the machine. It's a great idea. So it has those 4 feet, the machine screws to hold the feet in, and it also comes with a longer front support. Now this longer front support, as I was saying, it's got the standard support on it at the front under there, and the longer one just to stop any rocking if you need it. So you can see down here there is a mark and a mark, and they happen to line up perfectly with the edge of the alloy from that side. Okay, so you'll see also on the divider there's some little arrows, and it can't be a big lip. It can't be a big lip because it would affect the quality of the cut. So it's only a shallow lip. You release the clamp, bring it out to wherever, you know. I've gone through the angle divider in the 120s review, so this will be fine. I'll push it down to there. I'll release this and I will turn it around until it touches. That's it. And then it's a clamp situation. Now that's the right angle that that is the angle that I needed from there. Away we go, we can cut. Now the other thing that I need to show you that I didn't show you before when I was going through it about the deluxe model, or being the standard model, was, I don't know how often you've known you get this, but you hear it just indenting there, which is great. But if I want to set it to 1/2 degree off, and this little guy down here is basically like a vernier scale, It's very hard to do it because it's going to want to drop back into there. See that? It just drops back into the indent. So to fix that, there's a indent disabling lock. So I lift this up and across. Now, no indents. So now I can slide that around. I want it to be half a degree. All right, let's put the feet on. It's not that hard. It's not hard to put the feet on. We'll do the front ones first. And then this one. Like so. Do the back tube. How cool is that? Now, I'm not going to switch this one around, but you can see the height there. It's totally different, and I would need to have that in there to stop any front tipping. But honestly, I really don't think you'd need. How you put the angle, I missed a couple of things. How you put the angle divider back in is you swing it around, release that. One end is round, one end is square. You drop it in to the according area, and it just clips in there. When you swing that back around to 90 degrees, you're not going to get it out. So don't even try. You have to have it swung around to either 60 left or 60 right, and it'll come out easy. Is this going over the top? This is my Veritas straight edge. Watch this. How good is that? Now, of course, you can bring it out further and bring the extension arm out a little bit further as well if you wanted to. Let's go right over the top, David. Why not? That's pretty good. That was lucky it worked, wasn't it? But how good is that? So there's a support there and another one out there. If you've got a few cis ones, you can put them as long as you want. It's a workbench already set up, whether it's on a bench or on a floor. Kitchen cabinet, it'd be fine. Has these clamps. You can use a standard clamp. I do that little cut at the beginning so I get a nice clean edge across the top. I want to show you the capacity of the saw. That is a nice cut. Okay, this is a bit of jarrow. This is an Australian hardwood that is very, very tough. That is beautiful. I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised.